Hey everybody, Aaron here. Welcome back to another anime review. Today we look at Berserk episode 10, or Berserk 2016 episode 10. Excuse me. I always feel weird saying Berserk episode 10 because realistically it makes it kind of sound like it's the original Berserk. So yeah, I mean even though you can clearly tell from probably the title, everything else is not, of course. But I always feel odd doing that. Anyways, though, guys and girls. So very interesting episode in general. Very interesting. We see a lot of plot development. We see a lot of characters. We see what the reason for that weird egg creature really is. We see how he even came to be. So let's talk about how he came to be. Let's talk about this episode in general. So he kidnaps the one whore off of the Skull Knight's horse, and he brings her down into this weird kind of pit where you see this kind of giant idol, and he talks to her and for some reason describes everything that's going on with him. He describes how he even came to be, where apparently he was a very poor child. He was struggling to survive. He was going on scavenging garbage by night, as he says. You know, eating scraps off the floor, eating anything he can get his hands on, and just being shunned by society. And what's funny is they show at one point though that he was literally thrown into a giant pit of corpses. And while he was alive, he was underneath all these corpses, just kind of like getting filled with despair. And you know, you almost feel kind of bad for this thing until he finds one of the Baylets, and of course activates that, and thus becomes the form he is. Now she goes, well, "You look like an egg, though." And he goes, "Yes, I am an egg." He is apparently an egg for apparently the creation of a new world. Now, what's interesting about this is from the next scene we see his mouth. And we see this several times in this episode really fast, but then we see one really close up shot where we see a brand on it. So obviously, he is a sacrifice. Even though he is one of, I want to say, a type of apostle in many ways, he is still a sacrifice, an ultimate sacrifice. So I won't spoil what that is exactly, but I'll tell you right now, it's very interesting what his role is. Because, I mean, once again, he is saying he's an egg, and he's also supposedly the creation of a new world. So keep that in mind, guys and girls, when you go into the next episodes. Now, we do have Guts fighting in the tower still against Mosgus and his onslaught of angel army. And at first, it seems like Guts has the upper hand. He's able to fight back pretty well. That's going to change in a couple minutes, but he's surviving. He's trying to. Casca is still in Mosgus' arms, so he's trying to get to her because it looks like he wants to leave. So that's interesting. But we do have Guts trying to fight through nonstop, and some of the nicer scenes of the show so far. Like honestly, the fighting scenes are getting a lot better, so I'm really happy about that. Now we have the Skull Knight coming down to save the girl, and when he comes down, he talks about how the principles of the world may change. That's very important also because remember the Skull Knight. One thing he does very well is he prophesizes a lot of things in the course of the series, and his appearance will always signify something big changing for the whole. I want to say general thing of Berserk and the world lore and stuff like that. So anticipate when you see him in parts of the show, and if they showed up, and if he shows up at the next arc, if they even have the next arc. I don't know what they're gonna do with the series, of course, but if they do, just remember that he's always like that. And even in the manga, he was always like that. He shows up and kind of prophesizes things. Now, as they're leaving, the girl thanks him for trying to save them and stuff like that. He goes, don't thank me yet, and that's because we see this giant smiley face. I'm sorry. I think it's funny with the smiley face. Like my friend pointed that out, and I honestly I was laughing because it's so true. It has a smiley face on it. Like that's. I don't know if you're supposed to be afraid of that or just kind of like, oh, it's cute looking. I mean, it's cute and creepy, but it's kind of cute, I guess. I don't know. But we have that thing coming out, and it's just one of the giant. We saw the mass onslaught last episode of those things in the lower levels of the basement of the tower conviction, and this is just now they're starting to build and get stronger and bigger. So that's definitely something. Now we go back to Guts fighting, and he's not doing now as well of a job. He's getting bombarded with these angels, and they have all special attacks, every single one of them. Like for example, the one that wears the Plagas mask. He's able to shoot not arrows, but he's able to shoot feathers that aren't almost like arrows. They pierce the skin and stuff like that. And Guts is have to deal with that. He's dealing with the very strong one that's using the breaking wheel on him. So he looks like he's doing very bad. And the point that he gets held up by all these guys, and he's like, I can't move, I can't dodge. What am I gonna do? And then he realizes he has one little ace in the hole, his cannon arm. He uses that to kill one of the angels around him, and is able to kind of get away from danger there, and is able to actually fight back and at least win against the enemies he has to fight. So he kills off everyone. He kills off the Plagas Moss guy, And I kind of felt bad because I didn't dislike the Plagueis Mess guy. He wasn't too bad of a character, and I felt bad when he died even in the manga because it's he was only following Mosgard because he was shunned by the society that the world he's in. So it's like you kind of feel for him a little bit. I mean, he still did wrong, but you feel a little bit bad for him. But anyways, we see that the Tower of Conviction is falling apart with what looks like an earthquake, but realistically, it's all the creatures, that weird blob type creature is now growing and just kind of breaking everything apart. It's starting to slip out of the tower and go into the land itself too. And at the same time, we see that apparently the villagers in the little ghettos and the little town that's in near the Tower of Conviction is starting to get overrun by zombies, which is ironic enough, but you see with a nice distant shot of what looks like a brand, so they're all being sacrificed to the I want to say the God Hand, but also the Apostle too. That's going to show up. But anyways, we have then Mosgard showing in with him shooting fire on all these creatures, and he comes in. And by the way, if you look to the left of this image, look to the top left. It's not the very top, the very left, but the more so like middle top left. You see something at distance. What is that? Oh, that's Isidoro being thrown off Mosgard's back. Like, honestly, that was so goofy, but it was so funny at the same time. I loved it. He survives. Don't worry, he's okay. But we have him saying that he's an ultimate god. Bow to me and stuff like that. And he goes around showing that he's so powerful with this quote unquote powerful attack called God's Breath, where he's able to shoot fire out of his mouth. And he goes around starting to kind of purify this giant blob-like creature. Now, Guts is ending the episode where he's still trying to get through all the creatures in general around him, and at the same time we see Casca being taken to be sacrificed via a kind of just, I want to say, a fire burial type thing. So yeah, it's Casca always in danger. That's kind of the MO of Berserk in general nowadays. But it's I know that's why people always hate the kind of the manga series after the Golden Age arc. But don't worry, it gets better when it gets further into it. Honestly, though, very solid episode. I had no issues with this episode. It had great animation, it had good fights. It was probably one of the better episodes of the season, so that's really awesome. Anyways, guys and girls, I will talk to you later. As always, hit that like button, subscribe button, share button. The whole nine. Have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.